I worked just shy of 40 years, but my pension still wasn't going to be enough for us. So when he called out of the blue, offering a free pension review, I was all ears. He spoke professionally about investments. He seemed a really decent guy. Just shy of 40 years, pension. He took all of it.
Seriously popular.
Welcome to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I am Sarah Vine.
And I am Peter Hitchens.
And this week, I shall be asking, is the English literature curriculum really being dumbed down, or are we just not reading as a country anymore? And Peter, as if to prove otherwise, will be talking about Lord of the Flies. Back after this.
Acast recommends.
Do you have trouble falling asleep? Hello, I'm Tasha, the host of the Just Sleep podcast, a podcast to help you sleep. Every week I read classic literature like Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, Sherlock Holmes, and even fairy tales like Thumbelina and Beauty and the Beast. So if you have trouble switching off your thoughts and drifting off to sleep, let me read you a story. Follow Just Sleep wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts.
Acast powers the world's top podcasts, including
The Doctor's Kitchen.
Happy Mom, Happy Baby.
And the show you're listening to right now.
Welcome to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I'm Sarah Vine.
She is.
And you are
I am
Peter
still
Hitchens.
Peter Hitchens.
And I was struck the other week because I read a thing saying that the average reading age for adults in the UK is between 9 and 11 years, which I thought was astonishing. And then there was more information which said that 1 in 6 adults in England now have a reading age of below a 5 to 7-year-old. And I thought this merited some discussion. I think it's extraordinary that that is the case. I mean, presumably that means that what is the reading age of a 5 to 7-year-old?
Well, this is one of the problems with these statements.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Yes, I mean, when I was 7, I was reading The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and all of those novels. So that would presumably
I think I was reading The Wind in the Willows, and Black Beauty and all those the old Victorian children's classics.
Yes.
I was also, of course, reading the Beano.
Of course.
And the Dandy and the Beezer and the Topper and all the
all
others
those top
with much
tip,
more,
top
although they were very
magazines.
much disapproved of.
Yes.
And I have to say, to my shock looking back on it, I was also watching a great deal of rubbish on black and white television.
Well, that's interesting because
even I was doing this.
Even you did that. So the thing is, I was not living in this country and we did not have a TV.
No, you had a great
Our
advantage.
neighbour had a TV and I used to occasionally sneak over to her house where I was allowed to watch the TV for an hour or something. But basically, most of the time, there was no television. And anyway, if there had been a television, there wasn't anything to watch on it. Cause it was
that would not have stopped you. There were all kinds of cheapo American series called things like Glen Cannon and Gunsmoke. And there were also dreadful British-made police series like No Hiding Place.
But but also
Murder
the Italians.
Bag. And my brother and I perched on the sofa watching all this garbage. Well, our parents, with total relief that they didn't have to worry about us, got on with whatever it was.
Well, there you go. You see, whenever
do.
we came back to the UK, we were allowed to watch television, and my father always used to watch the Aeneid line, I think, which has some pretty girls in it. And then I was also allowed to watch Hawaii Five-0, because that also quite often had pretty girls in it. But in Italy, the only thing you could ever watch was very badly dubbed versions of things like Little House on the Prairie and Fonzie. What was that? Was it called?
No, I don't know. I stopped watching television.
Monday, Tuesday, Happy Days. That's right.
About
yes.
the age of 16, I stopped watching television for many years, and people are constantly making references to it. I don't know. But you don't want to talk about television. You want to talk about reading.
But it is relevant to this conversation. Because
up to a point.
Because I think television and then subsequently smartphones, computers, laptops, blah, etc., are part of the reason why people are reading less with their eyes. So my daughter loves a podcast and loves an audiobook, and she calls it reading with her ears. You know, in the days before TV and all of that sort of stuff, when I didn't have TV, if I had nothing to do, so I'd done my chores and my homework, the only thing to do was read. Otherwise, I was just bored out of my mind. Or fish tadpoles out of the pond. That was the other thing I used to do.
Yes, I'm lucky to have the kind of imagination which turns words into pictures.
See, I don't
even
have that.
even history books.
Yeah,
the school history books would do this for me.
Yeah.
I was plunged in wonder when I read them, and I would spend an awful lot of time. Also, we had a prep school, the boarding prep school I went to in Devon, had a headmaster who believed very much in people being outside a lot and getting a lot of exercise. I thought that I'd been outside quite enough and had quite enough exercise, and I learned that if I wanted to avoid this sort of thing, if I went to the school library, nobody would ever find me because nobody ever went in there.
Yes.
And there was a particular bay in which I read ancient pre-First World War volumes of Punch,
Amazing.
which I found totally fascinating.
Yes.
Not only the cartoons, but I formed a view of the world and of the First World War, which still hasn't left me, provided basically by the cartoons of the great Sir Bernard Partridge, but also by all the other stuff. And the gloom of it was huge. And also you could read the magazine before the war and you could read the magazine after the war. And it was obviously catering for different worlds, totally transformed.
Yes, interesting.
Made a huge impact on me, which has never left me. It's a curious kind of reading that, but that didn't do much for the imagination. But I remember things like, did you ever read the Phantom Tollbooth?
Yes.
Norton Juster.
Yes.
Absolutely overwhelmed
yes, I
by
did.
this. Fantastic.
Yes.
I felt quite guilty about it. I thought, I think I was 12, and I thought, surely I'm too old for this sort of thing. And I would hide.
I feel that about a lot of
I
books.
learned after a while to stop hiding the fact that I read books which seemed to be intended for people younger than me. Alan Garner, did you ever read The Weird Stone of Brisingamen?
No.
Fantastic
I would have
story.
loved that.
Alan
Anything
Garner
that has the word
you
weird
could read
in
it now as an adult. It's one of the most,
Weird Stone of Brisingamen.
Yeah, one of
That sounds tremendous.
most wonderful stories ever written, with a terrifying middle part of it, which I still can't read without almost choking. But he's a tremendous storyteller.
Yeah.
And that was his crowning achievement.
I mean, I remember being so bored around the ages of 10 or 11 that I read all the Graham Greene books that my parents had.
What did you make of them?
I was utterly baffled. I don't know. I don't really.
Sometimes I've read books
I don't think I understood
I've
them.
read each word, plod, and turned the pages. And at the end of them, I don't think I could remember anything.
I remember
about them.
reading Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad.
Goodness,
and,
at 12.
And sort of, probably 12. Don't forget also, I was reading in 2 languages. I was also reading in Italian.
Well, he was thinking in Polish and
it was
in English,
and I didn't understand all of it. It's quite interesting actually when you read those sort of books as a child and then you read them again as an adult and sort of lots of pennies tend to drop. But what's really interesting is that even I, who grew up reading and had reading as a sort of basically my catch-all entertainment, even I don't read that much anymore.
My great reading period
one must be honest about this.
My great reading period was adolescence. I read everything. Masses of Hemingway, masses of Graham Greene, and all the things which we thought of as the classics of our time.
Graham Greene's very good.
All of Evelyn Moore. He's sometimes good and sometimes not. I find I'm really irritated by Brighton Rock, for instance. It annoys me like anything, like when he tries to shove theology into these stories. I think
I enjoyed Brighton Rock when I was young because I think it is quite a sort of one-dimensional book.
Well, maybe. I mean, the Our Man in Havana is a work of genius, and everybody in politics should read it because then they would never ever believe anything spies told them again. We could have, if people in our ruling class had read Our Man in Havana, we would never have had the Iraq War.
But
it is the classic weapons of mass destruction.
Going back to my point, which is that even people, I mean, do you read as much as you used to? Yeah. Honestly.
Yes, I do.
And,
I've designed my life so that I can.
But you do spend a lot of time on Twitter.
That's about a reason.
I've noticed that.
But that's not time that I would otherwise spend
so
reading. It's arguing time. It's also, I'll tell you what I use Twitter for, to do the broadcasting that I'm not allowed to do anymore.
Okay, because
it's as close to broadcasting as I can get, which is why I do it. I imagine an audience and speak to them.
But so it's interesting because I have talked to my children about this because they're that sort of age. And it's interesting, my daughter reads a lot of physical books. So for Christmas this year, she requested a box of books from her dad. And he was delighted because his book addiction is off. It's beyond. I mean, it's a disease, the amount of books that man has. And I remember when we moved house, we were actually moving house not because the children were getting bigger. We were moving house because there were too many books, and I couldn't find anywhere to put them anymore. And he would never get rid of books. They're like his children, and he likes to go back to them and cross. So she this Christmas asked him for a box of books, and honestly, the look on his face, he was so delighted to give her this box of rather sort of. It was a mixture of, she likes to read sort of books on human behaviour and anthropology sociology and politics and kind of stuff like that. But she does. She sits down.
Does she not like fiction?
And she reads. No, she doesn't massively read fiction. No, she just reads. She reads non-fiction. And
it's funny that.
And she loves it. Whereas her brother, if he reads books at all, it's just Audible or whatever.
Which is not reading.
I mean, he can read. I believe.
I'm not saying
told.
he can't read, but listening is not reading.
Even if
you're listening, one of the things, sometimes at school teachers it was going out of fashion even then, would take it into their heads to read to us. And I looked forward to it immensely. It's one of the most enjoyable things in the world. Generally, they would not finish. And I remember being read what I then did not know was The Box of Delights by John Masefield. Have you read it?
No.
Well, the teacher, MissOwden was her name. She read us, I think, the first 3 chapters, and then Christmas came and the school broke up and it never restarted. And I didn't know the name of the book, and it took me 50 years to discover what
Couldn't
it was
you just ask
called.
MissOwden?
She'd gone by the time I realised how much I missed it. And I finished it, and it is the most tremendous book, one of the best books ever written in my view. But I spent a good portion of my life wondering where on earth it was and how I could finish it.
Do you think the reason that children are not reading or not people's reading age is falling is because no one is writing books that people want to read anymore?
There's that too, but also I don't think parents are reading to their children.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I do not think they're doing it. I think that is to start.
iPads.
You have to understand that in these books there is magic, and that if you want that magic to continue, you are going to have to learn to read them yourself.
Yeah.
Parents are also not teaching their children to read, and they're leaving it to the schools, which approached reading, teaching a bit as if they were delivering milk. It really isn't very good.
No, well, I mean, children are not
schools.
really even teaching their children to go to the loo before they send them to school.
Well, they can't. The parents are supposed to do that, and their mothers have been more or less abolished, so children don't have them.
But I think that's because there is a sort of general decline that's gone over a number of generations.
Oh, yeah.
But and it is definitely not a good thing that is the average reading age. In this
the only time I ever wrote a short story was for the Daily Express when I worked for it, in which I imagined that a strange storm blew over England of snow and all kinds of other things, and it's prevented the television transmitters from working. This was, of course, pre-internet thing. And that the country was suddenly forced back on its own resources again, and there was no television anymore. Now it's been invented. Reading is gone. The age of reading lasted from Caxton and Gutenberg and indeed Lord Northcliffe and Lord Beaverbrook and the Daily Mirror. It lasted through that period, and now it's dying. And it will become a minority activity carried out by people in isolated places, much as it did in the Dark Ages.
Do you think that's just
I think
us?
it's had it. I think it just has had it, which is why we have to rejoice at audiobooks, because at least it keeps the books
At least it keeps the
alive to some
ideas,
extent.
the books and the stuff.
All
alive.
my books I've recorded on audio because I'm certain that a lot of the people I want to read them cannot read well enough to do so.
Well, it's funny because my book that I did last year has done really well on audiobook, and I'm not sure that's to do with me. I think it's just to do with the fact that people are listening to lots of books on audiobook.
If you read your own book,
yes, I did read it.
It will live in a way that for instance, Stephen Fry reading it will not.
Well, I don't know. It depends if you like Stephen Fry.
Can't stand Stephen Fry.
Poor Stephen Fry. What's he done to you? What's he done to you? Come on, tell me.
I know.
Is this an irrational
I'm not
thing?
even going to start. I can't. I mean, he did once do something to me, but it's immortalized on the internet.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who don't look at the internet,
he denounced me. He behaved very badly at my brother's. It wasn't a funeral, but
memorial.
He behaved very badly, pursuing me about the place, and then wrote rudely about the encounter.
So you don't pursue someone at their brother's funeral. That's out of order.
That was my feeling.
That's just rude.
I knew that if we met, I could see him.
You're his brother.
I could see him, Stephen Fry.
There's
I
a
could
time
see
and a
him
place,
bulging about 100 feet away in the place where we went after the event, and I could see he was shuffling closer and closer to me, and I really wanted to avoid that.
Shuffling away.
I kept moving away, but he kept on, and it was an encounter entirely sought by him, about which he then got hoity-toity. That's so you asked. This is not what we're talking
someone
about.
at a sibling's funeral. I think there's a time and a place.
I agree with you.
For these
In
things.
general,
Yes.
I think you're right. But
Absolutely.
but if it's Stephen Fry, it's worse.
Okay. Well, yes. You've been warned. But yes, I think you're right. The fact that people
don't invite
still...
him to your siblings' funerals.
Did you invite him?
No, but it wasn't for me to do so. I was very much secondary in this.
Well, it's probably a miracle you were even invited to your own siblings'
No.
funeral.
Don't get carried away.
Why not?
All right, do get carried away. It'll carry you away to error.
I don't know what the solution is. I mean, when I go to book festivals, there are lots of people there who seem to be able to read. So, you know.
But they're always the same people. I think there's about a couple of thousand people who go to all those book festivals.
And they can all read. Hooray.
Well, they certainly could give a good impression of reading, but they're not. It's not exactly like the Glastonbury Festival, is it?
No.
They don't. When the Hay Festival sets up, they don't have to ring the entire town of Hay-on-Wye with thousands and thousands of tents, special lavatories to cope with them. It's not that big.
I mean, I think the other thing
I'm not allowed to go to Hay-on-Wye. I was allowed once. I've
never gone. But I think the other thing about reading with your ears is that actually it's very easy to get distracted doing other things. And there is, I think, something incredible about getting lost in a book. It's very hard to get lost in a book unless you're having to use your eyes to read the book.
Interesting. I think the survival of radio and indeed the success of audiobooks has a lot to do with the fact people spend so much time trapped in cars in traffic jams, where it is the only way, it is the only escape from the misery of sitting in those boxes.
Or on trains now, and headphones.
Well, you can read on a train. You can't read while you're driving.
No, although I think
they've never yet asked me to drive the train. Though I see they're lowering the age for train driving.
I have to say,
maybe they'll raise it too.
I did once catch my ex-husband reading while driving.
Yeah, that's shocking. I did once drive a train.
Did you? Would you like to tell us about
The driver invited me to do it. It was one of those old-fashioned sort of trains where you could look over the driver's shoulder, and he eventually opened the door and said, "Come on, have a go."
Were you the most excited Peter Hitchens in the world?
Oh, it was wonderful. I got it up to 70 miles an hour. All he did was
how old were you when this happened?
I was 12. All he did was keep holding the dead man's handle down. I did all he did. It was not that complicated to drive, provided it was all and it was an empty line.
Very exciting.
Nobody died.
Good.
It was great, and I can boast. What I really want to do is drive a steam train. That's a different matter.
I don't know how we got to that from reading it. Every conversation with you ends in the train.
Your ex-husband had, the Lord Gove, been reading while driving. Michael, if you're listening, don't do that again.
I don't think he does.
Well, the world is full of zombies at the moment. As I ride my bicycle, they're walking along, bent over their screens, and they're driving bent over their screens.
But the other thing,
it's terribly dangerous.
It's terribly dangerous. But the other thing is, of course, you will very soon be able to read while you drive because you'll have a driverless car.
Well, then you won't be driving, will you?
Well, I mean...
If it's driverless, you're not driving.
Well, no, but it's driving. It's so you could sit in a car which is going somewhere and you could be the only person in it, and you could not...
But you see all these cars are now misjudging things.
I'm terrified of driverless cars.
In shop windows and things.
I think they're just horrendous. I think the whole thing is a nightmare.
It might work in Los Angeles. It will not work here.
No, it won't.
So no, that won't happen.
And it shouldn't. Anyway, on that note,
reading.
We're going to take a break, and afterwards we'll be talking about Lord of the Flies.
They expect you to stay quiet, to swallow hidden fees, put up with faulty products, and accept poor service as just the way it is. But you can demand better. Stand up, speak up, because with Which on your side, you can say no to bad business, buy with confidence, and get the service you deserve. Which? The power in you. Find out more at which.co.uk.
Acast recommends.
Do you have trouble falling asleep? Hello, I'm Tasha, the host of the Just Sleep podcast, a podcast to help you sleep. Every week I read classic literature like Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, Sherlock Holmes, and even fairy tales like Thumbelina and Beauty and the Beast. So if you have trouble switching off your thoughts and drifting off to sleep, let me read you a story. Follow Just Sleep wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Acast powers the world's top podcasts, including
The Doctor's Kitchen,
Happy Mom, Happy Baby,
and the show you're listening to right now.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
To, alas, Vine Hitchens. She is Sarah Vine.
And you are indeed Peter Hitchens.
And what I wish to talk about is The Lord of the Flies, the famous book, this week being dramatised by BBC Television, book by William Golding, who appears to be one of the worst teachers ever. I'm told that one of the things he did at his grammar school was he was so bored with teaching, he would tell his pupils to count the words in the chapter of the book they were supposed to be reading while he sat at his desk with his feet up reading the paper. That kind of teacher. So you can see he might not have gone on with his pupils, and this may have been the origin of his fantasy of a bunch of small boys dumped in an air crash on an island somewhere in the Pacific, turning into savages. But that's what it's about. Yep. And I read it so long ago that the book cost 3 shillings and sixpence, Penguin Modern Classics. And I read it again this week because after watching the television version, which I don't much like for reasons I'll come on to later if you feel like it, I felt the need to read it and compare the two. It didn't take long. I had a couple of evenings and an afternoon basically to read. It's not particularly about 200 pages. One of the things about it which makes it very difficult, I think, to televise is so much of it is description. And so many books are like this. People think, they read this would make a wonderful film, television program. And then the actual script writers take a look at it. What are you going to do? And what, of course,
where's the action?
Lots of music as a result, lots of landscape, lots of animals creeping about on beaches and stuff like that. And, of course, backstories are either invented or greatly increased. Now, the thing for me about this is that the boys portrayed, and they are all boys, there are no girls on the island at all.
Probably just as well.
Or any adults. Well, it's a very good thing, I think. But these are boys who are not far different from the boys I went to school with. Books published in 1954. I first went to a boarding prep school in 1959, so very similar. Yeah. And the school I went to was actually a choir school, though I wasn't in the choir. And so the importance of the choir, and in the book you may remember that when the original community breaks up, the group which breaks it up is a group of choir boys from a school who owe an allegiance to the leader of the choir, who takes them all away, and who, despite having spent most of his life singing and listening to the Magnificat, is the most tremendously accomplished savage. And
that's why.
That's how it works. But the thing is that what I've always thought it said was this, quite simply, that it's only convention and upbringing and the restraint of the society around us which keeps us from being savages. And I think that not merely is that true, but that it is true in a way which doesn't anymore require us to be dropped from airplanes onto remote tropical islands. You can be a savage very easily in certain parts of North London and indeed certain parts of Oxford, and you'll get away with it because the restraints have gone. Yeah. It's largely come true. By the way, do you know where the title Lord of the Flies comes from?
No.
It is Beelzebub. Beelzebub is the Lord of the Flies.
Yes. I did know that.
It is the devil.
Yeah, I did know that. Lord of the Flies. I did know that was what
a lot of people don't. There's so many quotations people don't, or people.
But I didn't make the connection.
People think For Whom the Bell Tolls is something Ernest Hemingway said, for instance.
No.
Well, no, it's John Donne.
For whom?
Yes, that's what I said.
Yes. Why have we got onto that?
I'm just saying.
You're just saying. Okay.
People
people do.
They often don't get the references which
like
authors intended in the titles of their books.
Yes, there are lots of things like that. I can't bring any to mind, but there are plenty of phrases that are wrongly attributed, aren't there?
Or people just don't realise where they come from. Yeah. Anyway, Lord of the Flies is in fact the Horned Devil himself.
Yes, excellent. Well, I can't watch it because I found it too difficult. I found the book really hard.
Why?
And upsetting. I think because I was quite badly bullied at school, and I found the whole kind of feral nature of it, the sort of heartlessness was something that I'd experienced and couldn't really understand. Because it is that a sort of almost pointless heartlessness, isn't it? There's a kind of there's no the Lord of the Flies. It's just cruelty for cruelty's sake.
No. Bullying is very purposeful. People draw. The bully himself draws great pleasure from the fear of the victim. And he also draws, or she draws, power from the gang which form around him or her as they do it. Yeah. It has purposes, but they're evil what you might call diabolical purpose.
No, I think bullying sometimes has no reason. It's just they see a weakness. And
people instinctively do it.
I mean, that's the thing. So people who are perceived as weak tend to get bullied.
How did you respond?
I cried a lot. I mean, I was bullied because I wore spectacles and was a bit chubby and was quite bookish.
Piggy,
I was Piggy.
In fact.
And
who, if you haven't read The Lord of the Flies, is one of the central characters, a small boy with glasses.
Yes, who's terribly sweet, and
also probably the cleverest person.
Exactly,
on the
and sweet and naive and not sort of particularly. As I was bullied when I came back to the UK from Italy, actually, and because of the Italian school structure, I was a little bit ahead because they finish at 14, whereas we finish at 16, so they sort of tend to go a bit faster with things like maths and that. So I was a bit clever, and I was very specky. I'm very short-sighted. I have real bottle-bottom glasses, and I did at that time. My hair was falling out already, so it was quite thin and, not the way it was supposed to be. And then I was a bit chubby, and also I didn't really understand. The cultural stuff is quite interesting. I didn't really understand England or English people or how things worked in English schools, because Italian, I was taught by nuns, so schools in Italy are very strict and very respectful towards the teachers. And there was a total opposite culture here, and I was totally mystified.
You went to an anarchic school at one point.
Yes, I went to lots.
They hated St. Bede's.
Yes, exactly. And so there was a sort of sense that I was this kind of piggy, basically. And I remember someone taking me once, a nice girl taking me aside and saying, the thing is, you're bringing all of this on yourself. What you need to do is to get some contact lenses and get your hair cut and lose weight and get a boyfriend. So I took her advice, and that's what I did.
And did it then stop?
I did stop, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so alas.
It
is good advice, though. It shouldn't be necessary.
It was good advice, and she was right about it.
I'm not sure about schools at all, increasingly. You spend an awful lot of time as a parent, as you will have done, worrying about getting your children into what you think are the best schools. The more I know about schools from my own
horrible
experience,
places.
They're not. I mean, this Ivan Illich deschooling society campaign seems to me to have more merit than
I'm sort of with you. I mean, I absolutely hated school and couldn't wait to leave.
I did too. I left at 15.
And I think my daughter felt the same about it. And my son less so, but I think my daughter was quite badly bullied at school. So basically, I discovered at quite a young age that if you're kind and nice and smiley, everyone hates you. Yes. And that was the sort of that was a sort of revelation to me.
That wasn't my problem.
Because but vulnerability is the thing. So that's why I don't like. So sorry, to go back to, I'm a bit off topic, but to go back to the subject, that's why I don't.
No, you're not off topic. That's why the book is so widely read and continues to be studied. It's about a very fundamental truth about us all. There's some very clever stuff in it, where the breakaway boys who form a tribe and begin to wear war paint.
Yes.
And as a result, they lose their individuality and they become screaming savages. And this is true. Any kind of adoption, any sort of uniform enables people to shuck off whatever previous character they had, whatever previous training in morality and restraint they had.
Yeah.
And that's
they hide behind the uniform. And if you look, and I think if you look at things like craze, sort of, I mean, look at the Nazis, look at, but once you've got it, once you've sort of become anonymous within that group, then it's much easier to do terrible things, isn't it?
Too young to remember the mods and rockers riots.
Yes, I do remember those,
like that. And
in Brighton.
Once people are in a gang, then it's also much easier. And I think there's a certain amount of that in what is, in some parts, sort of, almost a companion book, Clockwork Orange.
Yes, I've also read Clockwork Orange, and
similar era,
similar sort of thing. And actually, but I found Clockwork Orange much easier to read because it doesn't have this piggy character. And when I was growing up, my father used to make me watch. My father had a series of films that he thought were educational I should watch.
Yeah.
And one of them was A Clockwork Orange.
Really? It was practically banned for a while.
Yeah, so I watched it.
Kubrick was terrified that it was doing harm.
He said it was he hated it. But I remember it very vividly, particularly the scene where the Droogs go into that house with that couple, but it's a remarkable film about the power of gangs and persuasion and all that kind of stuff.
Where the central character, whose name escapes me, who's encounters his old friends,
Alex,
and
he's been brainwashed.
One of them called Dim.
Yes,
and Dim has by this time realised that being called Dim was not a compliment. And I seem to remember they beat him up quite thoroughly with the old ultra-violence.
Yes, the old
ultra-violence. I think they're very much companion books.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's completely right.
How low we can sink.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. You just absolutely. If someone could come now from a coral island somewhere in the Pacific and come to this country and think he'd come to an island,
I completely agree. I totally agree. And
people get stabbed in schools.
Well, particularly if you look at gang culture in the UK, which is going back to Clockwork Orange, so much of it is utterly meaningless and pointless, and it's just done because that's what's done.
But there is a thing.
There's no logic behind it.
If I could just throw in on the television series the things I didn't like about it, it doesn't. It's like so much of modern television. It has total incomprehension of what life in Britain in the 1950s was like. They can't begin to see, for instance, that changing the character of Ralph's father, who in the book is a commander in the Royal Navy, which is the rank my father attained to, and changing him into a chief petty officer it changes the whole story of an utterly different thing. Yeah. And then there are some scenes of them all saying goodbye to their mothers at the airport. And there's something slightly contemptuous about towards that era in their minds. That's not what the book's about. The book accepts that 1950s Britain was as it was, and that it was undoubtedly preferable to a life of savagery and killing.
But because
pigs
it's a modern interpretation, it has to be sneering of that period, and that's the problem. And there's a conversation to be had about how society has changed as we have sort of loosened those constraints, and whether things have gone for the better or for the worse. And you can take a view about that, but the book is very definitely saying, this stuff is not great, but it's better than the alternative.
Well, I think that's the thing. A lot of things which were called during the 60s and 70s repressive seem to me to be quite sensible. Oh, you're repressed, people sometimes say to me. Damn right I am, I say. You wouldn't like me anymore if I weren't.
Exactly. But there's that thing of, going back to Lord of the Flies reference, the devil reference, it's that thing of chaos for chaos's sake and cruelty for cruelty's sake, and there's no reason for it. There's no, Piggy hasn't done anything. And I remember having this conversation with this nice girl who was helpful to me, whose name was Felicity, and I said, but what have I done? What have I done to these? Because I hadn't done anything to any of them. I hardly knew them, and it was she just said, it's not what you've done. It's what you are and who you are.
Justice only,
and that's fascinating to me.
Justice only exists where there is reason, and reason only exists where there is authority, and that's a point also made in some parts of the book. When there's an actual sort of very brief debate towards the end. Do you want to feast on pigs and dance and paint your face, or do you want justice and reason and debate? And they turn around and say, actually, we want to feast on pigs and dance.
I know.
That's fun.
Human nature.
So that's what we want. It is. Chaos is fun until you're the pig.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, definitely. Anyway, there you go. Should we do some questions?
Sure.
No, fascinating. I don't think I will watch it. My friend tells me it's brilliant. Yeah, I might read it again.
As a book rather than as a school transcript.
And people, if they can watch Clockwork Orange, I think it is worth watching. Don't you? Have you seen the film?
The film?
Yeah.
I seem to remember it being rather sort of scratchy and jumpy for the very problem that I mentioned, that it's you can't, so much of it takes place in the imagination and in the head. I did 60 years since I've seen it.
I think it's pretty true to the book, is what I would say.
I can't remember.
Hello, my question to Peter, since he hears the more conservative here. No. I wanted to ask him on the issue of divorce. Out of the below three alternatives, what would he prefer? 1, a couple that is very miserable and fights all the time and the kids see this but stay together just for the sake of it and to keep the family together. 2, a couple that has accepted the marriage is over and have decided to part ways and harmoniously co-parent, and kids most likely remain with the mother, and the father lives elsewhere but gets to see his children and maybe have their own separate love lives, and the kids know this. 3, the parents hate each other secretly and know the marriage is over, but for the sake of the kids and society pretend all is good and keep seeing other people secretly. As someone who grew up with option 1, I hated it and would have preferred if they'd divorced. So my question to you, as a conservative who hates divorce, what option would be most suitable for you?
Oh, none of them. I mean, these are not the only available. These are not the only available options. The declaration of marriage is actually a declaration of adulthood. What you promise to do at marriage is to behave as an adult, and also what you promise to do, and it's absolutely clear in what I believe to be the most basic and beautiful expression of the marriage bond, is to continue to live with each other until death do you part, and this means you have to discipline yourself. So however much you might want to have rows all the time, you just don't do that. It's not a force of nature that makes people do that. It's because they haven't grown up properly, and people should grow up more. And people shouldn't get married until they've grown up, in my view, or have children until they've grown up. But the idea that these are the only options just seems to me to be a mistake. The other thing about divorce is this. Divorce, no one is compelled if they're married by anything other than the force of their own oath to stay with the person they've married. If you decide that you can't stand it, or if the other person behaves in such a way that you think that the oath is broken, then you can leave. What divorce is permission to remarry, and that's to say to make the same promise again that you've made before and have broken, which is ludicrous. And you can't do that. If you make a lifelong promise and you then break it, then there's no point in pretending that you can make the same promise again while the person to whom you made the first promise is still alive. It's an absurdity, but divorce is not permission to part. Divorce is permission to remarry, and that's one of the reasons why it's so contentious.
I think it's a very good point. My answer is 2. That's what I do.
The first major news event I recall is the Suez Crisis in 1956. I didn't know what was going on, but the word Suez came out of the radio the whole time. And I remember my father, who was at that time a naval officer, required every day to wear full uniform, gold braid and the rest, could not get to we lived in a small house on the edge of Dartmoor, could not get by car to Devonport where he was working. So got an old bicycle out of the shed, pumped up the tyres and rode down to the nearest railway station, now long ago closed, I should point out. And Royal Navy commanders did not in those days ride bicycles. It wasn't
it wasn't done.
They were really expected to do, but he did it. And I realised at that point that something major was going on. There was no petrol.
Was that also what sparked your love of bicycles?
No, it had no impact on that at all. But I do remember it.
Yeah. I think mine was...
1956, I was almost 5.
Okay, yes. Well, mine I think probably was the Falklands War.
Gosh.
Because my parents didn't really buy newspapers and we didn't really watch telly. And that was when I'd come back to the UK by then. And I remember that being very dramatic.
What did you think?
I thought these people have all gone mad. I don't know what they're doing. But I think, I didn't really understand the world back then. And I just thought it was unnecessary, I suppose.
It certainly was unnecessary for the Argentines to invade the Falkland Islands. Let's say that.
I just think
once they'd done it, that was it. They had to take what was coming to them.
Yes, I don't think I took that view. I was just,
Well, my father had been in the Falklands in the 1930s.
Like I said,
in our house, we knew where they were, in which we were pretty much unique in the whole country.
No idea where the Falkland Islands were.
I've been there since.
Have you?
Yeah, it's very nice. I got a suntan
in
December. There are penguins, yeah.
Excellent. Dear Servine and Mr. Hitchens, as I know, he quite rightly objects to being addressed by his first name. I tend to call him Sir Lord Peter Hitchens.
Now, come on, Lady Bracknell.
I wondered whether either of you are amigurous. Is that a sex thing?
Armigurous, is it?
Armigurous.
I think it means that do we have coats of arms?
Oh, possessive.
Well, Sarah does. She has a coat of arms by marriage. Do you not have it? Has Michael not kitted himself out with a coat of arms yet?
I don't think so. He's Lord Gove of Torry. Which is hilarious.
They generally get one.
Don't you just get one as a sort of thing?
The Garter King of Arms comes along and says, would you like one?
I'm sure this has got lots of books on it.
I can't imagine he wouldn't do it. No, I am definitely not. In fact, my grandfather had this ancient joke.
You can pay £10,000 to get one,
Yes, well, I don't want one. But my grandfather had this ancient joke. If ever he heard any aristocrat on the radio because he wouldn't have television, he only had radio, boasting that his family had come over with the Conqueror. He would growl in his Hampshire burr, "Yes, and my ancestors were there waiting to meet him." There's none of that for him. And that's the tradition I come from, rather. Thank you very much.
It says, perhaps you might...
The Normans are dispossessors and invaders. We don't...
No.
All their stupid titles are as nothing.
It says, equally, how might you both stress the fact that we have now had an unprecedented run of 4 I can't say it.
Armigerous. I think it may be armigerous. I don't know. I spent a long time believing
it's a great word.
fatigue was pronounced
I'm
fatigue,
just delighted.
So I'm no guide.
Ben Jarrett from Oxford has given me a new word, armigerous. Perhaps you might like to ask Mr. Hitchens to guess who the first non-armigerous PM was. Don't look at your notes.
I'm not looking at my notes. I should imagine it was Benjamin Disraeli.
It says it was Bonar Law.
Oh.
I didn't even know who Bonar Law was.
He was very briefly. There was a book written about it called The Unknown Prime Minister.
Of
so
course,
you have an excuse. He was Canadian. He wasn't even British by birth. He was Canadian. It didn't matter in those days. And he filled in at some point after the First World War.
Oh.
But I would have thought that it would.
Which was actually Prime Minister.
Well, I suppose Disraeli became armigerous when he became the Earl of Beaconsfield. But Bonar Law never got any kind of title at all. Baldwin became Earl Baldwin of Bewdley, didn't he?
I don't know. I'm amazed you know any of this.
Did Lloyd George take a peerage? I think he probably did, yeah. Asquith certainly did.
David Cameron's got a peerage, hasn't he? David Cameron has a peerage. Does he have a coat?
He does now, yes. He didn't have one.
Does Gordon Brown have a peerage?
He was just a bounder. No, Gordon Brown certainly doesn't.
So he's not armigerous then?
He is, but he was asking who the first one was.
Okay,
right, several
yes.
since then. I don't imagine Ramsay MacDonald.
Yes. Well, anyway, I don't think I would pay £10,000 to have a thing if it was.
This is the sort of thing
Americans do that, don't they? Yes. No.
Yes.
Oh, he does say, Sarah, perhaps your ex-husband might have seen to it upon his elevation to the peerage. I don't think he has. Or maybe he hasn't.
I think he needs to check. If he's got a coat of arms, I want to see it.
Yes, I would probably. Yeah, I should probably have a T-shirt made if I've got a coat of arms. Absolutely. Is that allowed? Can you put a coat of arms on T-shirt?
I don't think they could stop you, but I think they might sniff a bit.
Brilliant. Well, that's all we have time for.
Is it?
Yes. Dash it. It's because you spend so long talking about trains, Peter. You take up all the programme with your train reminiscences.
No, I always
and we're going to have a limit on the trains.
Trains are central to civilization. They're bound to come up.
I know. Thank you so much for listening to Alas, Fine and Hitchens. We appreciate it. Don't forget to check out this week's reading list, watch list, and share the books, TV programmes and films you think we might want to read or watch. For that or anything else, you can get in touch at alas@dailymail.co.uk. You can leave a comment on Spotify or send a voice note to WhatsApp 077 96 657 512 and start your message with the word alas.
Acast recommends.
Do you have trouble falling asleep? Hello, I'm Tasha, the host of the Just Sleep podcast, a podcast to help you sleep. Every week I read classic literature like Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, Sherlock Holmes, and even fairy tales like Thumbelina and Beauty and the Beast. So if you have trouble switching off your thoughts and drifting off to sleep, let me read you a story. Follow Just Sleep wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts.
Acast powers the world's top podcasts, including
The Doctor's Kitchen,
Happy Mom, Happy Baby,
And the show you're listening to right now.